you've ever watched an athlete crush a hard workout and grind through pain and show all the signs of mental toughness and then coast through the next 3 days like it didn't matter, that gap between capability and consistency, that's what we're digging into today. And you know this, parents and coaches want to see their athletes grow and compete and succeed. But it gets frustrating when it feels like that athlete doesn't fully see what's holding them back or how much they've got left in the tank. And that's why I'm doing this series of episodes where I tackle real questions and comments and even some quiet frustrations that I hear from parents and coaches and sometimes athletes themselves. When I started doing this in episodes 11 and 12, I dropped another one in episode 21, and it clicked with a lot of people. So I'm going to keep going with it, and we're going to do more of these. And I come at this from all angles, as a former athlete, as a dad, as a coach, and as someone who's obsessed with how the mind affects performance. Today's episode is all about effort, a huge piece of the mental game. So whether you're a parent, coach, or the athlete, hearing those words and feeling that tension, this one's for you. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back. Episode 23 of the Next Season podcast. A few years ago, my wife and I took a trip out to Wyoming and Montana, absolutely one of our favorite places in the States. And if you haven't been there, you have to go. We did Jackson, the Tetons, spent the night in Yellowstone, headed up for a couple days in Big Sky, Montana. As we were driving through Yellowstone between Wyoming and Montana, I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. There was a stretch of road and acres and miles long of blackened trees that had been charred by wildfire. As we drove through that, it was quiet, it was heavy, and honestly, it was a little bit sad. But here's the thing, it's also necessary. I'm going to come back to this story later, because today we're diving into a common frustration that I hear from parents and coaches and teammates, and I received this specifically from a coach who is also a dad, or should I say a dad who is also a coach. So here's the structure for the episode. We're going to identify what this dad, what this coach said, what his pain point is. I'm going to share the exact words for you. I'm going to explain what's going on in the brain from a mental performance and mental skills perspective. We're not going to go too deep into what's happening in the brain, try to avoid the jargon, but explain what's going on, what could be going on. And I'm going to share a personal perspective, what I would do if I was the coach of this child, if I was the parent of this child, or if I was even the athlete, because we're all facing the same challenge. I'm drawing from my experience as a player and a coach and as a parent. Because remember, everything that I'm sharing here in all of the episodes, I'm saying to myself too. So here's the message that I got from this father and coach. He said, he's talking about his son. He said, he has the toughness to handle challenges, but he doesn't always push himself to his limits. And this one really hits home, I feel like, with a lot of parents and coaches, because it's more than just an observation. It's a feeling that parents have, coaches have, and the athletes obviously have. And you can see the potential. You can feel that grit, and you see them touch that level of intensity at times. But there's this underlying frustration when the player doesn't go all in consistently. It's like watching someone who's got all the right tools, but isn't using them to their full advantage. As a coach, it's frustrating because you've seen them rise to that challenge before. You've watched them dig deep during a tough game or a tough stretch, or get back up after getting knocked down, figuratively and literally. You've seen them go all out in training sessions or put together a solid 2 or 3 week stretch of consistency. So when it's time to really push to take things to the next level in training or on their on-field performance, and they just don't give that extra gear, it's hard. For parents, it's even more personal because you see your kids' potential daily, right? Parents want to see their kids give 100%, but when that effort doesn't match what you as a parent know your child can do, it's a tough pill to swallow. And it's hard not to take it personally, especially when you've invested time and energy and money and emotion into their success. And you begin to wonder what's holding them back. Is it a lack of motivation? Are they scared of something? Is it something I'm doing? Or worse, do they not care as much as I thought? Is all of this a waste? And this feeling of holding back is what makes this so tricky and difficult, because it's not always obvious. Sometimes it shows up as hesitation before a big moment, or not putting in that extra ounce of effort during training. And as a coach and a parent, you want to see them take ownership and push through that discomfort. You know what it takes. You want to see them unleash that potential, right? You want to help them build that character. You've got the life experience that they don't have, and you just want them to hear you and you just want them to listen. You know that they're capable of so much more, and that frustration is real. But here's the thing, this holding back is often tied to something deeper, and we've got to zoom out and ask what's really going on. So let's talk about what's happening or what could be happening in the brain when it comes to pushing ourselves to our limits. Because, like you said, he has the toughness to handle the challenges, but he doesn't always push himself to his limits. Pushing yourself to your limits isn't just a physical thing, it's a mental and emotional decision. And the thing to understand is our brains are wired to avoid discomfort. Our brains are not just trying to protect you from physical danger, they're trying to shield you from embarrassment and failure and looking bad and getting tired and fatigued and injured. And yeah, even from trying too hard and not getting the result that you were hoping for. Like if we were to go all in, we're to go all out in this thing, and we're not guaranteed the outcome that we want, whether it's, getting the hits that we want or becoming a pro player. Like if we can put all that effort in and we go all in, but we're not guaranteed that outcome, is it worth the effort? Now we can detach and we can know, yeah, that's worth it because we build character, we build discipline, and we grow in that process. We know that's true. That's life. But in the moment, it can be hard to make that decision. It's a natural instinct that goes back to our survival mechanisms. When we push ourselves, we're not only asking our body to work harder, we're asking our brain to process higher levels of risk. And one of the brain's primary roles is to protect us when the stakes are high and wants to play it safe. Think of it like your internal risk management system. Human beings are like water, right? What does water do? Water takes the path of least resistance. Our brains are hardwired to take that path of least resistance as part of our survival. So let's apply this to baseball. Imagine a batter stepping into the box with two strikes, right? Key moment, pressure's on. Your body knows how to swing. You've done this thousands of times. You know the mechanics. You've practiced it. But the brain is sending a message. Be careful here, okay? Don't swing at a ball. Don't swing and miss. Don't pop up. Don't hit into a double play. Don't fall for the breaking ball. And that split second hesitation is not a lack of toughness. It's the brain's natural response to the perceived risk of failure. So it's fight, flight, or freeze. And it's part of a survival instinct that's hardwired into us. And oftentimes we freeze. Now, even outside the pressure of a micro in the moment situation like that, like on field performance, look at something like training intensity and consistency. If the athlete isn't putting it all out there and grinding every day and going for PRs and max reps and running till you puke, it's probably more to it. And this is where things get really tricky because often coaches and parents interpret that hesitation or lack of follow through as a lack of effort, as if the player isn't giving it their all. But in reality, what we could be seeing is the brain's protective mechanism in action. It's doing what it's supposed to do. In an attempt to prevent failure and prevent injury or embarrassment, this is what's happening oftentimes when players don't push themselves fully. It's staying in the comfort zone. And as much as we like to push players beyond that, the brain is constantly working to pull them back to a place where they feel safe. This isn't always the case. There are players and people who need a stronger nudge. There are ones who are, I'll just say it, there are ones who are lazy. And some of them are going to figure it out, and some of them never will. But I want to help us all realize that each player and each situation is unique and not to give up on them. So here's the breakthrough. For you athletes, for you parents and coaches, just a couple words that I think are going to be really important to understand for growth is get comfortable in the uncomfortable. Top performers do this. They embrace the hard things. They train their mind and their body to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. A great metaphor for this is stretching a muscle. If you want to increase flexibility and mobility, right, you have to stretch the muscles or ideally even work to strengthen your strengthening muscles in that full range of motion. And experts will tell you that the most important part of doing that is to breathe in that full range, to breathe through that discomfort. Why? Because that's relaxing your central nervous system, your CNS, and signaling to your brain, you're okay. Your brain can then back off a little bit and allow you to gain that mobility and flexibility. And you can apply this principle to everything. And breathing actually can be a big part of it across the board. So, breathing, no matter the situation, you get in a cold plunge, you're running, you face yourself in a high pressure situation, all the lights are on you, you're on a mound, and, big moment, you've got to come up with a big pitch. Breathe. That's telling your CNS, your central nervous system, I'm okay, I'm in control, I can go execute. So again, you can apply this principle to everything, and breathing is a big part of it. Now, there's getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations. And eventually, the best of the best performers are able to go beyond getting comfortable in uncomfortable situations. They get to a point where they are uncomfortable with comfort. And they're constantly looking for ways to challenge their mental and physical toughness. They'll wear shorts in the wintertime. They'll take the stairs instead of the elevator. They'll skip Netflix and social media to study and put in extra reps. They're going to embrace that hard conversation that they've been avoiding. They're going to put the phone away and sit quietly for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. It's the daily disciplines that they pursue over and over because a day full of comfort is uncomfortable for them. Coming back to that wildfire story from the beginning of the episode, wildfires, as destructive and brutal as they are, they play a crucial role. They clear out the deadwood. They make room for new growth. It's tough. It's part of how nature stays strong and healthy and alive. And human beings are no different. Sometimes we need to push our limits to grow, but just as often we need to burn away the distractions and the clutter, the limiting beliefs, so that something stronger can take root and grow. So if you're feeling like things are breaking down, they might actually be breaking open. Now, I need to remind you and myself that we can't constantly live there. We can't constantly live in this fire, this wildfire environment. That's a cortisol playground, and that's going to put you in a chronic state of stress, which is not what we want, right? If you're going hard line, red line all the time, going all in all the time, you're going to burn out. You're going to blow up your engine. You let that fire burn, it's going to go out of control. It's going to wipe out everything. We need to be able to go there and visit, but you got to know when it's time to leave. So we can train the brain to handle that discomfort and not see it as a threat, breathe, but as a cue to push through and to push harder and persist, not immediately back away. I'm going to that place a little bit, but I know when to back away, and I know how frequently to do that. Just consistent level effort. And that balance is key. You're going to hear me say this over and over in this episode. If you leave with nothing else, I want it to be this. There are moments when you absolutely have to hit that next gear, but it's also about sustaining effort over time. Bruce Lee said, long-term consistency trumps short-term intensity. When it comes to intensity, one of the most inspiring and intriguing examples of intensity today, in my view, is David Goggins. If you don't know David Goggins, he's known for a lot of things, and one of them is what he calls the 40% rule. If you've not heard of this, the 40% rule states that when you think you're maxed out, you think you're at your physical limit, you're really only at 40% of your actual capacity or capability. Your body feels that pain and fatigue, and it signals to your mind, you're done. But in reality, there's more in the tank. So even though your mind is saying you're tired, that's enough, take it easy, you really can do more. Remember, your brain's job is to keep you safe and conserve energy. But growth, learning to get comfortable with discomfort and building grit and building resilience, that's all found on the other side of those brain whispers, right? Your brain telling you, take it easy, back off, you're done. Okay. Now, Goggins takes this to the extreme. He pushes past that 40% wall again and again and again, day in and day out. He's running ultra marathons on broken feet. He's got his ankles duct taped so tight that they don't move just to be able to continue running. He's doing pull-ups till his hands bleed. And he's doing it again and again every day. And I respect, right? Like, that's insane and that's awesome and it's inspiring. It's helping a bunch of people grow in their life. But let's be real. You're not Goggins. Goggins is one of one. And that mindset and that physical pursuit isn't sustainable for athletes who need to perform and not just somebody who's trying to survive a mental test and show what they're made of. You cannot redline every day and expect to stay healthy and sharp and game ready. Again, elite performers understand this. They train with intensity, but it's targeted, strategic. They know when to flip the switch and tap into that extra gear, and they know when to pull back and recover. They don't need to be in beast mode every lift or every practice. They need balance. In baseball, like an example of this is that three outcome hitter. It's that three outcome hitter who goes full send on every swing, and it's either going to be a home run, a strikeout, or a walk, versus the one who knows how to time it, who has a two-strike approach, right? Call me old school, but I'll take the two-strike approach every day of the week over that all or nothing approach. To me, it can't be sustained, and you're going to get exploited. The goal should not be to bulldoze through every time and go, Goggins mode all the time. It's to build awareness, reframe discomfort, and learn to trust that you're capable of more than you think. Improve it on occasion. I want to share a little bit of a personal perspective on this, what I do, right? This was me. I'm going to speak from the heart as a coach and as a parent, as a former player. If I hear a player say this about themselves, that, I may not be going all in all the time and I don't push myself to my limits, or a parent that brings it up to their kid, the first thing I'm going to try to do is show some empathy, not judgment. Because if we really want athletes to push themselves harder and get better, knowing that that's where growth comes from, we have to go there. We've got to understand why they're not pushing in the first place. Sometimes it's fear of failure, fear of looking bad, fear of not being the best, fear of trying hard and still falling short. These fears are real and they're part of the human experience. And as a coach, I've seen players hesitate to fully invest in their training or performance because they're terrified of failure. They're terrified of letting other people down, letting their teammates down, letting their coaches down, letting their parents down. As a parent, I felt it too. I want the best for my kids, but understanding that pushing too hard might just create resistance, not progress. Other times it could be confusion. Athletes might think that they're going all in. They don't know what full effort really feels like yet. And they think that just going through the motions is enough. They think that showing up is enough. And sometimes it is, right? But they haven't fully felt the difference between a typical workout and the mindset of going to war with yourself. And there's a certain intensity that comes with embracing that grind, not just physically, but mentally. And unless you've experienced it, you probably don't realize how much you're capable of when you truly commit to that process. So it could be fear, it could be confusion. Sometimes it's burnout. Overtraining, that push to the limit mindset, that should never be the default mode every day. You can't sustain it. It's the mentality that every day has to be beast mode, and that's just not how athletes should train. And that's what I heard in this comment when this was shared, is he's not always pushing himself to his limits. And that might have been hyperbole or exaggeration, and maybe it is not literally what you meant. But as a coach or parent, we've got to be careful not to project our ambition or energy onto the athlete. Just because we want them to be their best every day doesn't mean that pushing them that hard is always the smartest or healthiest approach. And I'm all about intensity. I love max effort days, right? But they need to be strategic. They need to be planned. They need to have a purpose. If you ever listen to experts in sport performance training, you guys like Andy Galpin, Eric Cressy, who's great at this and specific to baseball, they talk about this often. You don't want to be maxing out your effort in every session. You do that too often, and it's a quick path to injury and burnout and mental fatigue, physical fatigue. Instead, think about training like the ebb and flow of waves. There's high tide and there's low tide. You need both. And the body and the mind need that time to recover, to reflect, and to be able to come back stronger. So you're proving to yourself when you push yourself to the limits what you're capable of. You're touching that space and then coming back to the proper modality. And, we can bring on experts in physical training that can really explain this better than I can. So I'm definitely going to try to do that. And if I'm working with a player from the mindset perspective who's not pushing hard enough, here's a couple of questions I'm going to ask. Do they know what full effort feels like? I mean, do they really know how hard they can push when they give everything? And this can be tested with something like that 40% rule. But again, it needs to be done carefully. Another question I'm asking, do they trust themselves and us as coaches and parents to handle what comes next? Trust is the cornerstone of progress. If a player doesn't trust themselves to recover after pushing hard, or he doesn't trust His process is going to hesitate when it's time to go all in. We need to create an environment where athletes feel supported no matter how hard they push. Our job is to provide clarity and the safety net so the athlete can step into that space of growth without fear of judgment. I would also ask, what do they want training and on field play to look like? Like, if you jam training, intensity, and practice and performance down onto them, you might get compliance in the short term, but more than likely they're going to resist and then defy you if they don't feel like they have ownership and agency over the approach. The best way to get buy into a plan in any plan is to allow them to build the plan. When it's their plan and they're having fun, adhering to sustainability is going to be much easier. And for you athletes, you need to take ownership. If it's your plan and you don't stick to it, what do you expect your parents and coaches to say or to do? Okay. So you need to take ownership. Parents, coaches, let the athletes develop the plan, work with them through it, poke holes at it if you need to, but it's got to be their plan. Here's another key section where I'm talking to myself too. I've made too many mistakes here. I'm going to continue making mistakes here. What this is all really about is awareness and trust and ownership. Awareness of what full effort feels like. Do they trust themselves? Do they trust us? And are you giving ownership as a parent, as a coach? And athletes, are you taking ownership? The athlete needs to take ownership of their effort and their process. But we as coaches need to help them understand that it's not just about the result, it's about effort. It's about the willingness to show up and the commitment to their journey, even when, especially when it's uncomfortable. And so here's where I'm going to throw in something crucial. Don't compare your athlete to other athletes. The quickest way to destroy something precious and important, including potential, is to compare it to something else. When you compare your kid to someone else, you're not just comparing performance, you're undermining their individual process and identity. Every athlete has their own timeline. Every player has their own path to greatness, their own journey. What works for one player will not always work for another. So instead of comparing, we should be raising the standards for that player, holding them accountable to their personal best and encouraging them to constantly strive for improvement without getting bogged down by what anyone else is doing. As a parent, coach, a former athlete myself, I can tell you that the process of pushing hard, the balancing of intensity with recovery is one of the most important things that we can teach young athletes. You don't have to push 100% every day. And that's why I'm going so hard on this comment, because you said that he's not always pushing himself to his limits. When we're called upon to rise to that occasion, you should have the mental and emotional capabilities to say, I'm ready, because you've been there in your training and you know what you can do. So I want to leave you with some action steps for athletes. If you're a coach, or even if you're a coach working with one, here are some actionable steps I want you to take, or at least I want you to consider to lean into this mindset. First thing, find your next gear. Next time you're in training, I want you to take a moment and reflect. Am I going through the motions, or am I actually pushing myself beyond my comfort zone? It's easy to coast through a workout or a practice session, but here's the thing. True progress happens outside the comfort zone. The first step is showing up, and then ask yourself, what is the absolute best that I've got today? And once you reach that point, go a little bit further. And that's where growth is. That's where growth happens. Okay. The second thing is beat your yesterday and screw everyone else's. Okay. Don't compare externally. When you compare yourself to someone else, you're rejecting yourself. When you compete externally, you compare. When you compete internally, you improve. And improving is taking a look at your yesterday and answering, what will I do today to beat my yesterday? And then track your progress, track your effort. Was I fully present? Did I do what I said I was going to do? Did I do the hard thing that scared me? Your only competition needs to be the version of yourself from yesterday. So start measuring more than just the obvious outcomes, and you're going to be surprised how the small wins compound over time. Beat your yesterday. Okay. So the first thing is find your next gear, then beat your yesterday. Finally, reframe discomfort. Stop viewing fatigue and discomfort as the enemy. Instead, learn to recognize it for what it is. It's a signal. It's a sign that your body and mind are being challenged and growing. That little voice saying, this hurts, or I don't want to do this, that's not weakness. It's feedback. And again, it's important to understand here. This doesn't mean that you just plow through that discomfort and that pain or that fatigue. Sometimes it means check your form, check your ego, make sure you're not trading short-term toughness for long-term injury, right? Growth happens in those margins, not at the expense of your body. You can go all out, go all in, and get those extra reps in of deadlift, blow your back out. You push through your comfort zone, right? You push yourself to your limits, but now you're on the shelf for 3 weeks. That's not going to help. Not every uncomfortable situation needs to be extreme. You want to find low risk, high reward ways to stretch your limits and apply them throughout your day, every single day. Take the stairs instead of the elevator. Finish your set with perfect form, not just more reps. Breathe through that discomfort during recovery runs or mobility work. Sit still for 5 minutes in silence. Mentally, you're uncomfortable, but it's a powerful thing to do. Put the phone away when you're tempted to doom scroll and when everyone else around you has theirs out, and just be present. Athletes grow the most when they flirt with that edge without falling over it. So push that boundary, but save those all-out efforts for the moments that matter and train your body to know the difference between I'm uncomfortable and I'm about to break. I'm going to leave you some closing thoughts. Again, that idea of he doesn't always push himself to his limits. Yeah, it's real. But instead of just slapping on more motivational quotes or yelling, go harder, one more, let's take a more intentional, empathetic, and brain smart approach to this. And I heard this recently, and it reminded me of the difficult but important role that parents and coaches have in the development of their athletes and their children. Baby eagles, they're called eaglets. And as eaglets grow, the mother eagle actually starts to remove the soft lining from the nest. So all of the feathers and the grass and the padding, everything that makes that nest comfortable for her eaglets, she starts to pull it out. And what's left are the sharp sticks and the thorns. It's a whole lot of discomfort. Why? Because the nest isn't supposed to stay cozy forever. Those eaglets are not supposed to stay home forever. She's making it uncomfortable on purpose because it's time for those eaglets to fly. The same goes for us. Our growth doesn't happen when everything's soft and easy. Sometimes we need that push, that friction, right? The discomfort to realize it's time for us to stretch our wings. So talking to my parents and coaches, nudge, support, make it uncomfortable at a difficult but doable pace. Pull those feathers out, pull that stuffing out, expose them to the sticks and the thorns, but don't just pick them up and throw them out of the nest yet. Okay. In due time. And demonstrate it yourself first. Demonstrate your own ability to push your comfort zone. Demonstrate your own ability to push things to the limit sometimes and to scale back and help them along the way. To my athletes, if things feel a little bit rough right now, maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe it's time to fly. So again, to that father and coach who sent that thank you, I'm with you. I'm with you absolutely. The messages in here are messages and reminders from me too. If you found this episode valuable, you know what to do. Share it with a teammate, a coach, a parent who could use it. If you haven't yet, hit that follow button. I'm dropping new episodes and content all the time to help build athletes for life. So keep showing up, keep stacking reps, keep having fun. We'll see you next time.